Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome to the Core Women Podcast. I'm excited to have Krystal Groth with me on the show today. She is the Vice President and co-founder of the Peaceful Prisons Project, a national nonprofit dedicated to delivering programs to individuals working in and impacting by the carceral system. With 11 years of experience as an elementary school teacher and a master's degree in reading, Krystal combines her education expertise with her passion for lifelong learning and holistic well-being. Living in Wisconsin with her family, Krystal enjoys outdoor activities and brings creativity, compassion, and dedication to her role as the director of programs, inspiring others to be better humans. I'm so excited to have you here with us today, Krystal. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Excited to chat with you and talk more.
Thank you. So before we dive into the professional aspects of your life, if you could describe your journey in one word to this point, what would that word be and why?
I guess I would say unexpected. When I first started teaching, I kind of assumed that I would be teaching for the rest of my life. And though, I'm taking a moment away from that, I did not necessarily know that I would go on this journey of starting a nonprofit with a good friend. And I didn't see that trajectory happening, but now I'm fully embracing it now and thoroughly enjoying the new path that it's leading me on. So yeah, unexpected.
Unexpected. I love that. There's so many unexpecteds in life. I just love how this has kind of coalesced into this project, into what inspired you to co-found the Peaceful Prisons Project and its main mission. So let's talk about that. What inspired you? Why prison work? Why this project?
My sister is unfortunately in prison currently, and she spent a chunk of her last year in jail and then got out and is now in prison and went back during her probation. So a dear friend of mine knew that I was now living this experience, right, of having someone that I deeply care about being part of the carceral system. And she knew how I felt about some of the struggles, right, that I'm noticing when someone that you care about is part of the system and it's kind of suddenly in your life. She reached out and said, I've always wanted to do something to make this better for people, because she has also experienced loved ones in the system. And she said, would you want to start this nonprofit with me? And immediately I was like, yes, let's do this. We'll figure out what it looks like, but yes, I'm game.
And so tell us a bit more about the mission.
We're a national nonprofit, and our programming seeks to support people that are currently incarcerated, post-incarceration, and then pre-entry work. So, like building community so people are less likely to commit a crime that would lead them down that path. And then we also, though, holistically support correctional officers, because their job is not an easy one and one that isn't very well understood. So really like a top down, bottom up, all around, all encompassing support, because we believe, that if everyone is thriving, that's the best thing for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. I love that approach, that it is holistic, that you're helping people working within the system, as well as trying to reduce recidivism, as well as trying to also help people in the system and post being in the system. So where are you as an organization getting your support from?
Our support is from individuals, corporate donations, and then we're also working with the Department of Justice in a variety of states. It's kind of like a tailored to the state and even more unique, to the facilities type of an organization, because we've come in and we had all these grandiose ideas of what we want to accomplish, right? We have so many things we want to do. And we're baby step realizing that it's very necessary to speak with whatever facility we're in and ask, what's the need here? Like, what do you most need? What's getting in the way of a more successful facility? And so that has led us to do a few different things. So our program, Bonding Through Books, is a program where we provide books to kiddos that they can choose when they come to visit their loved one that's currently incarcerated. And then they get to read that book together and then take that book home for a long lasting memory. So the family support was a need that we gauged and was told to us, like, please help us discern how we can better help family relationships. So then that's one program. And then our other program is called Supportive Forces. And that came from, in New Mexico, we had a conversation where they talked about, our correctional officers are really struggling with their personal lives. The divorce rate amongst correctional officers is higher than other professions, and it's leading a lot to, the heavy load that they carry home with them is a struggle for their marital relationship. So we're working on providing support to correctional officers when they're in the academy to better understand what their job will entail and then how to better take care of themselves and also bring that home to their family, so that they can be healthy and really understand the trauma that some of the people have experienced that they're working with. And then also some of the struggles that you may have as you're going through this job. That all helps to have a better, healthy work environment. And that's what really everyone needs, right? Yeah, that's Supportive Forces.
Yeah, I love it. It's so important to have that systems approach to understanding from prison to prison what's going on. So intake is essential when you're talking about what is the need for that particular system. And I'm not talking about the whole correctional system. I'm talking a system can be one prison. Yeah, that intake is so important. And then I don't know, if this is going on with your organization, but how are you working with NIC, National Institute of Corrections, and the Bureau of Prisons to really get that support from them? Because they've got a lot of programs too. So how are you integrating with the current programs?
So it kind of depends on the state and then the facility. So I'm based in Wisconsin, right? So initially our team started reaching out to every warden in the state. And then that didn't get us the progress that we were hoping for. And then we finally were able to meet with someone in DOC, the Department of Correction, and that was the golden ticket to talking further about how to actually get programming rolling and what the need was for the state. However, we've had Maine, for example, reach out to us and say, we heard of your organization and we were wondering how we could get particularly Bonding Through Books going in our facilities. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of us reaching out, and then we're starting to get feedback and people actually reaching out to us seeking the programming that they've heard about from other facilities.
That's fantastic. Yes. There is, especially with moms in prison and having their kids on the outside, that lack of connection and how you bring them back together without fearing maybe their mom or like, what are we doing in this really uncomfortable space with our mother? How are you bringing them together to create safety and bonding?
Exactly. And so Bonding Through Books came about because, as I mentioned, my sister is incarcerated. And so my niece is 5. And I immediately started thinking, how am I going to take a 5-year-old to see mom? And I can't bring anything. Every parent is like, whenever you think about what you're going to do with your kiddo, like at a restaurant, for example, you're like, oh, I'll have my books, I'll have my handy dandy, coloring action. You can't bring any of those things. So that's why I thought of Bonding Through Books being such a necessary arena to, sit and do something calming when everyone might feel a little on edge. Like, I'm just going somewhere unfamiliar. What is that kiddo going to do? But reading, right, just like calms the things down. And then I love the idea then of then the kiddo, every time you go to visit, right, you get to pick out a new book and then bring that home. Then that kiddo has like, hey, I read this with dad or I read this with mom. it's building memories when they're gone. And that's so important to continue that. It's not only for the parent, but for the kiddo too, and the families that are at home.
Yeah, that connection is so important, that emotional connection, the memories that it's building. And I love also how you potentially brought your elementary school teaching experience that influences this program, which is fantastic.
Right. Because then, of course, my brain went to the kids, right?
Yes.
And then, kind of at the same time, when New Mexico asked us to create some sort of, it really is like a workbook and a curriculum that we're creating, like a professional development that teachers attend and are part of all throughout their career. I'm now on the flip side. As an educator, I had made professional development for coworkers from different conferences that I had attended. But now, yes, I'm putting that type of work in for the nonprofit, as well as we're creating this workshop to support correctional officers. It's a funny twist, like another unexpected, like did not see that coming, but it's working out. And I'm
Yeah.
just working a bunch of experts that know more on the topic than I do. And that's really what you do, right? Is you reach out and find your resources and lean on the people that have done the research.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's connecting me with all of these amazing educators or people that are also like therapists and psychiatrists that know more than I do on the topic, and doing some real research to better support the organization as a whole.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, what are some of the challenges you've had and have faced in the delivery of your programs? And how have you overcome these challenges? And what would you like to see happen in relation to more support?
Yes. I was just talking with a good friend yesterday about this because he is also someone who's working to make improvements in the carceral system, pre and post incarceration. And I was chatting with him about, how do we get people to care more? Because
Hmm.
we all kind of go about our everyday lives doing the things, even myself included. I didn't really stop and think, hey, how am I going to make the prison system better? Because it's not really working well now. So that has been my main goal of late, is just as I'm chatting with everyday people, like a friend at brunch, but then also as I'm requesting donations from people to support the programming, is getting everyone to understand why it really is important to our community as a whole to make the carceral system work in a way that actually serves the purpose it's intended to.
Hmm.
The goal is to, okay, someone commits a crime, then how are we going to get from committing a crime to then being someone that is able to no longer do that? So what
Yeah.
does that look like, and how can we work smarter and not harder to make that happen, so that we have
Yeah.
a safe community that cares for all of its community members?
Yeah.
So yeah, chatting with him about how do we get people to care, and we talked about, a few different elements, and meeting whomever you're talking to where they're at, and kind of connecting and sharing why this matters to everyone, so that we can have safer communities, so we can be more proactive versus reactive in how we solve problems in our community is huge. Putting money in at the beginning so that we don't have to put in more money as we react and then have to house, feed people in prison for an extended period of time is, in my humble opinion, just a smarter way to go about doing things.
Yeah. And it's not just housing and feeding, but it's also these programs that are so critical to help with the reintegration. And that happens from before anybody ever gets into prison,
Right,
right? Or jail. And then, once they're there, how are we actually supporting these
right,
people and community? And again, I think it's taken away from the larger context of community. And if we thought more from a community-based approach, these people are going to still reintegrate somehow. So how
right.
can we put money into the services and the development of these people as they and before they reintegrate, which is so critical. And also relationship building, from relationships building with kids and community for them to be able to better bridge that gap regarding reintegration. So there's so many different levels of this that we could definitely talk about. So we've talked about a lot of these different touch points, but I want to ask you about a success story or a particular impactful moment that you've experienced as you were doing this. I'm sure there have been many, but is there one that stands out for you?
So my uncle, he is a correctional officer and he's done this job for 20 plus years. And so when I was sharing with him some of our plans for supportive forces, because I want to make sure that what we're doing is purposeful. Nobody wants to sit through a professional development and have their time wasted. But when I shared with him our intentions of speaking on trauma and what that looks like, and then how to take care of yourself, he just sat there for a minute when we were chatting. I mean, he's this big guy and he's been doing this job for so long, but he got like a little teary and talked about how good it felt to have other people get it. He's like, so many people do not understand how challenging it is to do this job. He's like, you're not doing anything with legislation. You're not getting political at me. You're just seeing the need and taking care of it. So that felt really good to hear that we're doing work that's so needed and not enough people are working towards it.
Yeah. And that could be a very impactful moment because you're helping those people on the ground who are doing the work, the everyday work. It's a hard job. I worked in locked facilities. I worked on the mental health side in locked facilities. My own husband has worked corrections facilities. I've seen what people have had to go through. And when you're thinking about a system, there are many people in that system that run that system, whether it's a large jail system or if it's a prison. And so you're talking about cooks, you're talking about counselors, you're talking about doctors, you're talking about the prison warden, the correctional officers. It's a huge system. It
Right.
is a functioning, moving system every single day, 24 hours a day. And
Right.
then you're dealing with human beings inside that system. How people respond and react looks very different from system to system.
Right. I'm finding that fascinating as I talk with people from different facilities in different states across the nation. It is fascinating to me to hear just the vast differences in what's available, and the difference in people's experiences is mind-boggling.
Yes, yes. And I think it comes from you've got a lot of people who have done this for years and years and years, and it depends on how grounded these people are in and rooted in the way they have done things for years versus are they ready to get progressive and make some changes.
Well, and I think so many people don't know what they don't know. So if they have no clue that they do X, Y, and Z in a different state, like what? We could be doing that here.
Absolutely. We have covered so much here, and this has been very enlightening and very insightful and engaging. And so I've really enjoyed this conversation. But I'm going to ask you my last question. If you were to give the listeners one tip about how they could cultivate a passion and at the same time give back to community, what would that tip be?
I would say to really advocate for yourself and what you and your family needs, no matter what that looks like. And then that also, I think, applies to advocating for others. When you see a need in your community, you have to step up and advocate and make that happen. Because if you don't, then maybe no one else will. Just stepping in and doing the legwork to advocate gives a voice to not only what you and your family needs, but then, like I said, taking care of others when they aren't able to can really make a huge impact on the betterment of your community as a whole. And that, is a worthwhile and necessary thing that not enough people do.
Yeah, true. And I love how you are advocating for others. And I love what prompted you and the mission behind what you're doing and how that is seeping into all facets of our community. So many thanks to you, Krystal, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today and for helping support our communities.
Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing as well.
Thank you. You can follow Krystal Groth on LinkedIn at Krystal Groth, Instagram at Mrs. Groth Books and Peaceful Prison Project, and on Facebook at TikTok as well as peacefulprisonproject.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women Podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.